On this episode of ResiWeek, Alexa Guard is released, Google backs off works with Nest, and Sound United buys Onkyo, Integra, and more. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 172. Choose your flavor.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Crestron.
Welcome to ResiWeek. This is your weekly wrap-up of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv. And today I'm pleased to be joined by my good friend, Jason Knott. He is the editor of CE Pro. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Matt.
Thank you so much for being here. Then we have Ken Eagle. He is the director of training for Atlona. How are you, sir?
Hey, Matt, doing great. Thanks for having me back.
Thank you for being here. And last but not least, as technically a first-time guest, I believe, although we've been multiple times together, it's Robert Keeler. He is the senior director of sales, partnerships, and sponsorships for Cedia. How you doing, my friend?
Phenomenal. How you guys doing?
We are all, I think, doing pretty good. Today has been a fun day in news, so we're going to kick this straight off with a story that comes to us from CE Pro. Amazon Alexa Guard, its sound detection, is turning Echoes into a smart security system. If you haven't been following this, Alexa Guard has been in beta for quite a while, and what it's doing is it's turning the Echoes into audio analytic machines, allowing it to record and react to 3 distinct sounds: smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms, and breaking glass. This is now going to allow you to set up with either ADT or Ring Professional to forward those alerts directly to your Alarm Central station. So, Jason, I want to start with you on this. This is a free product. It's something that can be enabled by users, and it works just like any other sensor within that security ecosystem. But it also is obviously bringing some really cool feature sets. Is this something that integrators are really ever going to play with, or is this one of those added-on features that is a benefit and integrators will kind of say, hey, you can do this, have fun?
It's a good question. I mean, I know at CES, one of the things that we talked about that was so interesting to see was so many devices that are kind of changing the mode of the security industry away from an electronic detection to some sort of an audible detection device. So there was a lot of devices at CES that are designed to do exactly like this: listen to a baby crying, listen to a quiver in an elderly person's voice. So lots of audio technology elements. The key thing that I'll say here that's not really included in that article is what was talked about when this was first talked about last fall, which is really kind of where this is all coming from, in that ADT will offer the Echo devices directly to its customers. So now ADT is doing this as it's a sales channel for selling Echo. And additionally, I'm looking back at the original announcement, ADT and Amazon are working together to provide offers and promotions to Amazon customers for ADT services and solutions, creating e-commerce opportunities for ADT. So that's what it's really all about.
Ken, should we be surprised by that? Should we be surprised that this is an added feature for free, albeit pretty cool, but let's be frank, it's a sales pitch. It's a way to expand that base and expand revenue.
Yeah, no, don't be surprised by this at all. All right. Number one, we've got these devices in the house. They're always listening. So something like this is coming down the road. And ADT, one of the first ones to jump on it, makes sense. They're a giant out there. It's a revenue stream for them. It gets more of these listening devices out in the home. So everybody from the business side is all about this. The question is, do you want more listening in your home? If you put it in there, they're already listening. So you might as well make use of it. If you don't want the listening in your house, don't buy the device.
So, Robert, let me ask you this, arguably maybe the most enjoyable question of this round. As Ken said, don't put it in if you don't want people listening. But let's remember, if you put in a Google or an Alexa or anybody else's voice assistant, in theory, that's staying within that company. You put in an Alexa, it's staying with Alexa. This is saying that they are going to, if you choose to, send and automatically forward that smart alert and the audio clips directly to that central station.
Yep.
How concerned, like, that's the thing that made me look at this and go, heck no. I don't want Amazon getting my voice recordings, let alone a central station.
Yep.
Well, you and I share the same point of view on that. I mean, if you have privacy issues, it's going to get exacerbated by the notion that now a third-party entity, i.e. ADT or others down the road, I mean, this is probably just the tipping point, and that now you have to worry about what information goes where. I mean, let's face it, our lack of privacy is gone in most cases just by agreeing to the software license. But on the flip side, my strangely enough, last week my father-in-law just got his ADT control panel fixed because his last one was probably 10 years old. They called him on the auspices of updating it. Well, I mean, it's the very same panel that they're going to be integrating this type of product and functionality into. So ultimately their goal is to sell more service, and RMR is a big topic, and what better way to capitalize on the millions of units sold than to find another way for those who might be on the fence for security to jump right in. But yeah, privacy's, if you have an issue with privacy, you're going to have a bigger issue now.
Very good. All right, gentlemen, let's move on to our next story of the day. This comes to us from Tom's Guide. Google backtracks on its ending of the Work with Nest program. If you haven't been following and lived under a rock, Google announced about 2 weeks ago that they were ending the Works with Nest program and rolling that into Works with Google Assistant. Of course, within this industry, there was a fair amount of backlash. There was a lot of people concerned about that. They've obviously backtracked a little bit, or shall we say clarified their position on this. And in theory, existing integrations and features will continue to work after August 31st, but no new features, no new integrations will be added. And they're encouraging users to switch to a Google account over a Nest account. And then they'll let you know, in theory, when that feature set now works with Google Assistant. Is this something that we are just completely at the manufacturer's mercy when it comes to this, or is this showing that there is some room for change based on uproar?
Well, we let them get so big. There's so many. How many millions of accounts does Google have, or does Nest have? It's so big, you're sort of at their mercy if you want to use the service. They've made it so darn cool. Who doesn't want to have the service, right? So we're all jumping on. It's super affordable. So if you're kind of at their mercy with this. But, reading through this article here, they kind of position this as it's better for you because you're going to be consolidated on one account and your information's in one place, and the wrong person can't get to your account, your ID now. But in the end, they're really, I think, just consolidating everything from the business standpoint. To make a bigger network that's easier for them to manage. They can drive more accounts to and find a way to position it for more revenue. That doesn't mean it's bad for the customer, but it's certainly better for Google.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Robert, when you look at this, and I know there's no way to actually answer this, but I want your opinion on this. Is this clarification that they just didn't explain it properly? Is this consumer backlash? Is this industry backlash?
I personally, I'd love to know who was the tipping point, who made that call to Google, and which manufacturer or which partner made that phone call, because I got to believe that, they sat in a meeting and, to Ken's point, how do we consolidate things? And they ultimately probably just made a decision on the fact that we're Google. We're going to make this happen. It's going to happen, case in point. I like I started off by saying I'd love to be the fly on the wall on those phone calls on Who Called, because I guarantee you some people that they trust and value, whose opinion they listen to, called them and gave them a lashing, because a closed ecosystem, yes, okay, no new, it continues past August, but it's no new. Well, you know what? First time, what happens the first time you have a firmware update, where, things change? I mean, look no further than what happens to Sonos when, they have an update and people are calling every integrator going, what just happened? And those are the types of things that can happen, certainly. But I think, it might be a bit of arrogance, and, I think that they were probably wise to listen to their trusted partners in the response back.
Jason, kind of to that point, when you look through, and one of the things I love about this article in particular is it outlines what things will work, what won't work going forward. So they cover Amazon, Brilliant, Control4, IFTTT, Lutron, Logitech Harmony, Philips Hue, SimpliSafe, and then some other ones, including Adobe ADT, August, Crestron, MyQ, SimpliSafe, Wemo, Xfinity Home. None of those, to Robert's point, give me that feeling of, oh yeah, they could get a call from, SimpliSafe, and all of a sudden, no, we totally shouldn't do this. Who has the power to push this like that when you look at that list? But also, where does this leave us as integrators? Does this give us any options, or again, are we just at the mercy?
To Rob's point, I wish I knew who could make that call also. And the thing that concerned me when I first saw it was, at the last CEDIA Expo, there were quite a few companies, like LeakSmart is one that comes to my top of mind, that said, oh, we're only here because we were in the Works with Nest program. That's the only reason we came to CEDIA Expo. And I think, maybe this industry is such a small, puny drop in the bucket that when they were having that meeting, that we never even came to mind. And they thought, hey, let's just consolidate the Google accounts, and they hadn't even thought about it. But I don't know, now that, one entity basically owns Control4 and Snap AV and SimpliSafe, it's the same investor that owns all three of those. Maybe it was those guys, but I don't know. And in terms of where it leaves us, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think we're still at their mercy. The integrators are, to a certain extent, and they have to look at it from the standpoint of, Google and Amazon and these big players are elevating the market and elevating the rising tide raises all ships, and we have to ride those coattails and know that there's going to be a percentage of those customers who are going to want professional installation.
So let me follow that up with arguably a really tough question for anybody who wants to chime in. If we're at the mercy of these big companies that arguably probably could care less about what we do, if we're in a situation where, we're riding the coattails, as you said, where does that leave your regular run-of-the-mill average integrator? Does it drop us down to literally just a labor force? Or is there enough mind share there required that we're still talent?
Well, I think you got to look at the market segments. This is kind of the same. We could have rewound back to the 1990s, and we were having the same conversation about the regional bell operating companies that were going to destroy every alarm company, and all the independents were going to go out of business. You were going to have to buy your alarm system from NYNEX and Ameritech, and it didn't happen. But what did happen was that a lot of integrators migrated into what I call safe haven zones. And in one of those in this space is the high end of the market. You and I have talked about this before, Matt, that the high end of the market, we're seeing it in the numbers in CE Pro. It's elevating. The average job size is getting larger and larger. There's money out there right now. So I think the high end of the market is very much protected from this coattail syndrome.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of integrators, I think, if you want to go with a volume play, you're going to have to ride these coattails. I've talked to guys, I talked to a guy up in Canada, his entire team wears Nest t-shirts. They don't wear the brand of the company, they wear Nest t-shirts. And he says that when they walk up to and they're approaching the customer, they have a stronger affinity towards them because they recognize the brand. And it's the same argument that for years integrators have carried Bose and integrators have carried Sonos, because there's a brand recognition element that the customer has, and then you have to apply your expertise as a professional installer. So I don't think it means the death of anybody, is my answer.
Very good. All right, gentlemen, let's move on to the next story of the day. This comes to us from Residential Tech Today. Sound United is expanding its brand portfolio with the acquisition of Onkyo. If you don't know who Sound United is, they are the parent company of Denon, Polk Audio, Marantz, Definitive Technology, Hios, Classe, and Boston Acoustics. And of course, once this goes through all the proper channels, they will be the new owner of Onkyo, Pioneer, Elite, and Integra brands. This is honestly a really big consolidation of a lot of competing products, really. Robert, I want to start with you. This is one of those things that I can't say I was surprised by it, but I'm also a little confused. Why would they go after and now have under the same house Denon, Marantz, Onkyo, and Pioneer?
This one confuses me as well. Not gonna lie, because I think Kevin Duffy even pointed out, these are venerable brands, and they've gone through, their changes over the last few years. Kind of funny. It's like PIO, Pioneer, Integra, Onkyo is still the first three letters of Pioneer. I mean, I spent the better part of a decade at Pioneer myself, and you start talking about all the various engineers across the different entities, and now you're looking at a global consolidation under the Sound United. And one of the things I wonder is, is it an issue with sales and you're trying to increase your top line, but through acquisition? Is there a lack of organic growth? I mean, I know the receiver business is taking a beating of late, but there's other segments that seem to be doing well. But I haven't looked as close at Sound United's performance on their within their portfolio. I mean, they picked up all sorts from Definitive to Class A, and and now this, and it just makes me wonder if it's an acquisition to bolster their top line. Because I certainly at some point in time things are going to get consolidated further. I mean, I'm going to use that fly on the wall phrase again. But yesterday and today, I think everybody flew out yesterday for the Sound United National Sales Conference this week in New Orleans.
Yep.
And what do you think is going to be the first day's conversation? It's going to be all about this. I'm sure there's a lot of people asking the same questions that we're asking. And certainly I'm anxious to reconnect with a few of my friends and kind of get that position. But I think innovation is going to take a hit. I think that you look at the various reps who are handling, and people who are handling the different brands are sitting there going, okay, what next? Is the shoe going to fall? I mean, we've seen that with some consolidation of a few brands as it is, when people whose livelihoods were once doing one thing is now another, so.
Jason, when you follow this, when you stay on top of it and look at Denon and Marantz, they are very complementary products. You can run Denon so high, and then you can step up to Marantz, and there's reasons why you do that, and there's reasons why you sell that, and I know that because we sell them. There are reasons why you sell Onkyo and you move up to Pioneer Elite. When you start having those two arguably identical lines, this just oozes to me. I get what Robert said about top line acquisition, but it oozes to me the problem GM had in the late 90s, where they literally had multiple cars that did the exact same thing, looked the exact same way, had the same parts and pieces and finishes, and it just saturated the market with people not wanting to buy those products. Is this?
You could have had that. We could have had the same conversation with Niles and Speakercraft.
Yeah.
When that occurred. Couple of things. No knowledge here whatsoever, but it could have been that the brands had suffered so much under Gibson that the deal that Sound United was able to get on this was one they just couldn't pass on. We don't know that, but that could have been the sense of what was going on there. And then it could be that they're looking for just particular niche strengths. And Integra, for example, is the #1 receiver brand in the custom installation space. So maybe they're just looking for particular strength, and we'll see some things that, Onkyo, I'm not really sure where their standing is in the consumer market these days. But you could see maybe they're just trying to pick out particular brands, particular strengths. Again, I don't have any insight knowledge.
Ken, following this, to kind of flip the conversation a little bit, you'd like to think that when products like this get moved around and shuffled, that it won't affect the integrators, that they'll still buy from the same places, they'll still do things like that. But a lot of times, this is a precursor to some of those deals, kind of as Robert alluded to, with sales reps changing and things like that potentially happening. How much do dealers have to put kind of some foresight into trying to manage their lines when this type of change happens? Or is it really just you sit back and say, I'll deal with it when it happens?
Well, I guess let me put on my hat as a manufacturer and how I would kind of look at this a little bit. Because it is a bit confusing that you'd pick up two so similar brands like this. But here's what I would think. The majority of this product, if I'm a manufacturer, I'm selling into distribution, and I've got some reps representing that product as well. If I want to grow my market share, how do I grow that more? I'm saturated the market. Sales aren't on the increase right now. I need to expand my distribution network. But I can't, because those distributors are selling my competitor's product. Therefore, why don't I just buy the competitor's product, and now I distribute everywhere and have all the reps, and now I can hit those integrators who are buying through distributor B or rep band B that doesn't carry my product. Well, now they carry my product too because I own it.
See, and that's why we have you on. All the knowledge. All right, gentlemen, one last quick thing that we'll just hit on. If you have something to add, jump right in. Sonos has added Google Assistant. This is something that they had talked about for a while. It doesn't really surprise me. Is this one of those things where it's just going to happen that as additional players come in, everyone's going to slowly pick up and add all of these, different voice assistants in, just the same way that they have drivers and systems for control systems? Or is this a targeted thing with Sonos?
Well, let me just say this. We could fill the CE Pro website every day with nothing but announcements of manufacturers who are adding various voice assistants. Seriously. That's why we relegated into this kind of product brief section, because otherwise it's happening every single week and every single day of the week. But the one thing that's good about this, Sonos is the #1 speaker brand and the #1 sound bar that was sold by integrators last year, which is amazing to think, but it is the #1 sound bar and the #1 speaker brand. So anything that has to do with the Sonos brand is newsworthy for the integrators to know about.
So having said all that, kind of with the way that you started it off, when manufacturers are adding voice assistants, is that even news anymore? Or is it just we expect it to happen?
For me, I expected it to happen. It's probably a methodical rollout. All said and done. It's all right. We did Alexa. Now let's work on Google's offering and just get the core competency of one before you move on to the next. And they're very methodical about it.
I'm not a voice assistant expert, and I don't play with all the products. But what I think is unique here, from my understanding, is that Sonos has combined several voice assistants in one.
Mhm.
That seems kind of special.
It is a little special, and it's something where you can kind of choose your flavor.
Newsworthy.
Yeah, which again just speaks to that broad market. So it's interesting to watch, but yeah, I'm with you, Jason. It's one of those things where I see these come across my desk and just go, yeah, okay, no one cares. Not that we don't care, just it's expected these days. And on that note, before I get the hate mail, let's stop. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. Jason, if people want to connect with you, learn more about CE Pro, where can they do that?
Of course, they can always go to cepro.com, or they can follow me on Twitter at JasonW.Knott.
Excellent. Thank you again. Ken, my friend, thank you so much for joining us after just getting back from your trip. If people want to connect with you, learn more about Atlona and all the products that you guys have, where can they do that?
Yeah, Atlona.com is always a great site. We keep it updated regularly. Just announced some amazing new training programs. So check those out. They're all free. And you can reach out to me directly at ken.eagle@atlona.com.
Excellent. Robert, my friend, thank you so much for joining us. If people want to connect with you, learn more about Cedia, or more importantly, become a Cedia member.
More than happy to help out with that. So certainly would suggest starting out with cedia.org. And then by all means, feel free to connect with me at rkeeler@cedia.org. That's RKEELER at cedia.org. And of course, we've got plenty of events. Check our events calendar. You can check us out in a number of spots. In fact, I'll be in Texas the rest of this week and other places in the near future.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, again, thank you for joining us. For myself, if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at Matt D. Scott on Twitter and pretty much every other social platform. But more importantly, please stop by AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show, as well as a wide variety of our other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the site, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you support them as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek. I always love being able to gripe about things like Sonos because it's rolled out in the US and we're not going to get it for another couple of months. So everybody hits it. I get calls from clients and they're like, hey, can I get this now? And I'm like, yeah, no. It's Canada. We suck.
Our 53rd state.
Yep. Pretty much.
And that's after Guam.
Thank you. Wow.